Hello and welcome to the Phasing Live podcast episode We Don't Know. In this episode, we don't know what we're going to talk about. Hey, Marty, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fantastic. Look, we're doing an episode, and it's just me and just you, and we're recording it in real time. I don't know what's going on here. I can't believe we're doing this again.
Believe it or not, Marty has a migraine. You probably won't believe it, but he's hopped up on so much caffeine and ibuprofen that he doesn't even know. But that's what he told me at the beginning of this. So far, it's been 20 minutes of us chatting around, trying to figure out what we're going to talk about. But we actually have a list of things. There's been a lot going on since our last episode.
We haven't sat down and recorded an episode together since early December.
Right.
And it's now
we
late
had
January.
The HRD thing. We had Gary and Ham Radio Now. That was pretty cool. I think that was a lot of fun.
I hope we get to do that again.
Yeah, that was super helpful for our views and our Patreon and everything. And I'm sure it was helpful for him. The tag up, not tag up. That's a corporate buzzword, is to tag up or to float down. Never use those buzzwords if you go into the corporate world. Let's change the corporate world. But anyway, I digress. It was really cool. And I was glad to be. I've never talked to Gary except for at Dayton. But
and we did that live, and we live streamed that too, and that was kind of fun. It was interesting.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I started playing with, it's called Open Broadcaster Studio, and
no, I was saying we live streamed when we recorded the episode.
Yeah, at the same time.
Something we haven't done before.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is it got me inspired to start live streaming. So I live stream a little random little update on my YouTube channel. So maybe in the future we'll do some live streaming.
I've done a lot of live streams kind of on my own Facebook page, but I've never really done a live stream recording an episode live, and I wasn't sure that I could.
Yeah, no, and so Kara and myself, and I've been blogging, everybody, I want to see more live streamers. It's not very interesting. So I'm going to admit, watching somebody contest is probably not very interesting, but I think we can take some of the ideas that, if you watch gaming on twitch.tv, some ideas of how gamers are live streaming and bring that to the ham radio world. Some of this I'm going to talk about on this weekend at the Winterfest Hamfest in St. Louis, but because I don't even know what I'm trying to think of. But maybe we could even change ham radio contests to make it more apt for people to have audience engagement. I don't know what that would, but that's basically, gamers will only have a 30-minute session of gaming. And then they'll talk to between breaks, they'll talk to their audience, and they'll do giveaways and stuff because, they're heavily sponsored by gaming things. And I don't know if that's a, valuable thing for ham radio to bring, but it's still something that young people enjoy, is watching live streams. And I'll admit, I spent a lot of my college hours, time in college, watching just people play games, and because it was just fun to be a part of the community. There's always funny commentary, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. I always have something snappy to say about that last contact that I just had, or I know that guy and I'm going to tell a story. But then you also have how contesting is so not single purpose, basically, more or less, because you're sitting at the radio and your goal is to make as many contacts as possible, and over a 24-hour period, or 48 or 36, whatever. So right now, as it stands, it's not very interesting, but it's still there, and some people do a good job of it. If you're doing a RIDI contest or CW contest, you can still talk,
right?
But and work at the radio at the same time.
If I'm doing a RIDI contest, it's slow and boring, and I can spare to talk, but especially on phone when you're doing two radios, there's a few points with kind of contesting. I agree. I don't really have time to focus on the dang live stream. If I'm talking to the camera, I'm not making cues.
Right. And nobody I'm noticing is really talking to the camera, except for maybe here and there. They take a break. One of my friends, Kyle N0 KTK, I think is his call. He live streamed almost the entire NAQP, and I think he streamed it with a potato, and his audio was fine, but there was no audience, there was no IRC chat, there was no YouTube chat or anything. It was just there. So it's got to start. It's got to start that way, and we'll adapt to make it more interesting for people to watch. The other thing is,
I see, live streaming as a way for people to learn how to contest a little bit, but at the same time, a lot of what I can see myself doing is, explaining why I'm on this band and why I have radio A on 20 meters and radio B on 15 meters, even though 15 meters is already runnable, because I can get a better points, more points on 20 meters because the rate is better, even though I need multipliers on 15 meters. But I can't really live stream that for a few reasons. One, if I'm putting I can't really point a camera at a radio because it'll give away my frequency, and that's basically self-spotting. That's not cool.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about in the ham radio now. Some of the rules against it,
Yeah, I can't point it at the computer. That is my frequency. I can't tell people what band I'm on because that's not really self-spotting, but it gives away strategy a little bit. We saw this, I discussed this last episode, especially with the online scoreboards. People don't really post the band breakdowns of their scores anymore because it tells people what band you're on. It gives away strategy. And if you're not a competitive contester, this may seem completely stupid, but if you're trying to do well, you don't want your competition kind of, in football. I love Bill Belichick and I love the Patriots, but you don't read the lips of the other guys, the other team. It's not how it works.
Right. And there's an honor system, but there's always cheaters out there. So you always have to be keen to those. And rules are always made to make the cheaters' lives harder. But there will always be those guys out there. See, I don't know. Maybe there could be subcategories like live stream categories, or maybe drawing the assisted as. Because assisted also gives away a competitor's frequency a lot of the time.
Well, if you're already spotted,
if you're so inclined.
Right. The difference is you can't spot yourself, and a big part of contesting is you can't solicit QSOs. I can't tell everybody I'm on 14,239. Come work me. And by the way, bring your friends.
Yeah.
That's not fair because Davy Boy down the road isn't doing the same thing. So I'm gaining a competitive advantage because I have a Facebook account.
Yeah, true. And if it's up to me, I don't contest for the competition, and maybe I will in the future, but I know some people are very, very, very diligent with their strategy. But if it were me, I'd give you my band. I'd give you all the strategy. I'd give you how I'm working split, how I'm working two radios, because I want to train and educate. That's my mission, but other people maybe not so much, and maybe live streaming is just not for them, or maybe there's just whatever.
I love live streaming, and I think it's great. I'm just not sure yet. This isn't. I don't think it's impossible. I am clueless, and I'm interested to hear from you and everybody else who's listening. I guess how do we do it? Because I don't, there's been talk about, allowing self-spotting on phone. The reason that people have been talking about it more recently is something called the RBN. Do you know what that is, Sterling?
The Reverse Beacon Network.
Yeah. You want to explain what it is?
Yeah, the Reverse Beacon Network is basically unattended remote radios that receive the entire spectrum of a band, and they automatically decode CW. And that decoded CW is sent to the internet. It knows where your location is based on a call sign lookup. It knows where the location of its own, the remote radio is. And so then you can draw a line between the two. And it's used a lot for monitoring propagation. So, for example, you call CQ, 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 N0SSC, N0SSC, N0SSC.
With test in there. You got to put
CQ testing, CQ testing, or CQ test.
CQ test. That's right. Testing.
Right. I wonder if it would work either way, but I know...
No, it won't, because it'll either take contest or test, but not testing.
Gotcha. So it'll either do CQ, 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 or just CQ test, but not testing. So I'll take that back. But what it does is it listens for CQ or CQ test,
or just
and
test,
filters out everything else. So if you're having a QSO and not saying specifically CQ over CW, and this is CW only, and I think maybe PSK or TTY.
Yeah, already.
Already. Okay. So an example is you call CQ test, and it will Reverse Beacon will detect you, and then it will say N0SSC detected on this frequency this time from these receivers, and you can have a whole list of receivers that detected you. So you can get a really good idea of who's picking you up and where, So a lot of people use that for, strategy, and seeing not only where you're getting picked up, but where other people are getting picked up as well, like your competitor, your neighbor, like how well is he being heard, and you can use it to test your antennas, do A/B comparisons, and it's really fun.
But
and
the
there's
more
also
the
good
more
science behind it.
the more important use for this, all those are kind of the things you can use it for. But the primary thing is it posts to the DX clusters. So it's an auto DX cluster spotter sort of. And with that kind of existing on CW and RTTY, getting spotted is not as important anymore, because if you call CQ and you're loud, RBN will spot you and you'll get, packet spots. But that hasn't been figured out on phone yet. So the argument, and I think a valid one to be made at this point is, people are doing it on RTTY. We might as well just let it happen on phone. But there's debate there. I don't see it happening anytime soon.
I mean, physically or computationally, it wouldn't work with the reverse beacon network because you can't decode CQ contest KD0BZE. That was my old call sign, by the way.
The technology is almost getting there, though, I think.
It's almost there, but when you're over a radio channel,
when you have noise,
it's really hard.
You're exactly right. When you have noise and you have...
it's not as easily detected as a single signal, a digital signal that's meant to be detected by computers. So that's coming around the corner, though, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So speaking of, we talked about live streaming, reverse beacon network, and NAQP. And Marty, you participated in NAQP, your North American QSO party. What's your recap on the contest?
What's the soapbox?
What's your soapbox? Yeah.
Well, so NAQP was a week ago as we record this. It was Saturday, January 21st. From 1700 Zulu for another 1800 Zulu until 4 Zulu the next day, I guess. Yeah.
Wow.
6 Zulu the next 18 plus 12. 12.
And by Zulu, he's talking universal coordinated time.
UTC.
So the time whatever time it is in London.
18 plus 12.
So
that's
time.
30 minus 24. 4 Zulu. That's what I was trying to say.
He's doing some Common Core math.
Yeah, there's the Common Core math. Sorry, I have a migraine. I can't do math.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. So it's a 12-hour contest, and signal operators can only operate 10 hours into the contest. And I had a new station built up at a friend's house, SO2R, full thing, blah, 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 blah. And we were getting everything working before the contest, and then we realized that somebody forgot to wire in the bandpass filters, which are critical for 2 radio operation. And we discovered that, 5 minutes before the contest. So in a fit of getting everything wired in and me not using the best language, a boy should be using.
Watch your mouth, young man.
Yeah. You sound like Canadian now. We sort of got things working.
That's good.
And then I sat down in the chair, and when I'm in the contest log geek software I use to record all the contacts, you hit F1 to call CQ and use a voice recorder. So instead of me saying CQ every single time, I go, I press F1 and it goes CQ contest, Kilo 1, Victor Radio, Kilo 1, Victor Radio. So I don't need to keep saying it out loud and lose my voice.
I first learned about voice macros in Missouri QSO Party last year. Well, I knew about them, but I never really used them. But it is a throat saver. It's a voice saver for sure.
Yeah.
You record yourself, like Marty said, and then you can hit a button and it just plays it back.
And it's real.
And it does it. It also does it on a repeat timer, isn't it? So you don't always have to hit F1.
Right. Right, and it's even more important when you're doing 2 radios. So I rarely actually talk on the second radio. It's mainly the voice keyer doing it for me. But basically, I hit F1 and I hear a loud bang.
A bang, like
a
boom,
loud. And that loud bang was the automation system deciding it didn't want to work anymore. So I lost. So I lost all the antenna switching. I lost all the electronically rotated array switching, be it the 4 squares or the phased antenna arrays.
No. So you're talking magic smoke.
Yeah.
Didn't decide to work.
Yeah.
I decided to let go.
Without an extra bottle sitting nearby.
No.
The only thing that worked was the SO2R 6-pack coax, which is a switch that allows you to put 6 antennas to 2 radios and route different antennas to each radio. So that worked, but it's fairly useless if I can't get to each antenna on each band, and the stack batch for the stack doesn't work, and whatever.
Crap.
45 minutes into the contest, I kind of cobble something together so at least I could get one radio sort of working, but you can't switch to most of the antennas, and on the high bands, half the antennas have to be pointed at Europe. It wasn't really designed to work. It was temporary. And I didn't realize the fact that most of my RF was heading towards Europe until the contest was over. But I sat in the chair in 20 meters, and I had, 120 hours for the first 4 hours, which is very respectable. That's like 2 Qs a minute. One radio, not going to win it, but, I'll make a top 40 finish. And then I went to, I was in the running for the top maybe 20 at that point. I would have done much better with 2 radios. I think I probably have won Massachusetts. But, I could have done a lot better if everything worked. And then I get to 40 meters and I realize I have no way to get any sort of antenna on 40 meters. So I run out to the room where the antenna switching is and bypass all the switching and just plug in the 40-meter antenna. And then I came back to the shack and I heard nothing, and then I realized there was a filter switched in, so it was kind of a mess. It took me 20 minutes to switch bands. And I got to 40 meters, and then the low bands were really bad. 40 meters was sort of productive, but 80 and 160 were not. I found out afterwards that out of the 50 Qs I made on 160 meters, the antenna was stuck pointing at Europe the whole time for a stateside contest.
So you're running the back of the antenna because you're in Massachusetts, and so everybody is to your backside.
Yeah, southwest. So I was probably running 100 watts, and then I was probably 20 dB down. So
that's 100 times less. So you were running 1 watt effective on the back end of the antenna.
Yeah. So
that sucks.
So everybody
you still make contact.
So everybody who worked me on 160, you have really good ears. 160 meter phone, basically QRP. Impressive. But so I kind of got things going, sort of, kind of. I made 600, 700 contacts in 10 hours, most of them in the first 4 hours. It was very disappointing, but that's how it goes. You win some, you lose some. Sometimes something works, sometimes something fails, but it was an adventure, so it goes.
That's cool. Well, I mean, you still got, it sounds like a pretty high score despite all of your failures and magic smoke explosions. So, I mean, that's a whole part of the thing. Things break and you fix them, and that's the ham spirit.
The difference between a good contest tester and a great contester is, and I'm not a great contester for the record, is can you fix something on the fly? And I sort of did.
Yeah.
A lot of, things don't always work out perfectly. It's the ability to kind of hodgepodge things together when it doesn't work to kind of save the effort.
Yeah. And that's part of our hobbies. Part of our hobby's mission statement is the whole emergency communications thing and being prepared. And that's how you really know you're prepared for something, is when you're capable of, you basically know everything there is to know about your station, and you're capable of fixing it in any scenario, anything that goes wrong. There's always a back, not even a backup plan. It's just, there's always a fix. And that's a hallmark of, being a ham, at least for a lot of us, I'm sure, but not for all of us. Like me, I just like my thing to work, and if it breaks, I'll probably fix it. Just like my IC746, which has been broken for about 2 years, and I have an FT817, which has been broken for about 6 months or 4 months.
I even tried to fix that radio.
I'm lazy. Yeah, I'm so lazy, but I'm not actually lazy. I'm just really, really freaking busy. Work is killing me. So obviously, I didn't work in NAQP, but I have something really cool coming up. Is my first ever my first ever Hamfest presentation. So it's
speaking
basically
engagement?
a speech. Yeah, speaking engagement.
Is it like a forum or something?
With a Hamfest. So I'm participating in a forum at Winterfest. I guess I'm hosting a forum at Winterfest, and Winterfest is the St. Louis Suburban Radio Club, SLSRC for short. They're a Hamfest, and it's in Collinsville, Illinois, which is about 20 minutes outside of St. Louis. From there, you can see the arch and everything, but it's a little bit drive out. But it's from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., and it's on the 28th. So by the time you hear this, you'll probably have found it on YouTube, because I'll try to live stream it, and if not, I'll definitely have it recorded. So I'll put it on my YouTube channel. At this point, it's Thursday to 26th. I'm 2 days out. I have no idea what I'm going to say, but my topic is YOTA, Youngsters on the Air, colleges on the air, basically anything that has to do with youth and ham radio, and also promoting ham radio to youth, and promoting youth to ham radio and ham radio to youth is kind of my like mission statement of the last
plug
couple
the
days.
podcast.
Yeah, plug the podcast. I'm going to talk about live streaming. I'm going to talk about colleges, like I mentioned, and Youngsters on the Air, YOTA, which is the European initiative, which is super successful. They're gearing up for 2017's YOTA camp in the UK, which I might make a surprise visit to, or may not, just for vacations, because London is cool. They're having it in London, just north of the city.
Are you going to be in London anyways?
I might. Yeah, Justin and I are thinking of vacationing there, or Spain. I don't know.
You were just in London. Weren't you just in London?
Well, we were in London for like 6 hours total. It was just a layover at Heathrow, and then we went to.
Did you leave the airport?
Prague after that. Yeah. No, that's what we did. Is we left the airport for about 6 hours, and we went to a pub. We went to the Big Ben, the Piccadilly Square. Saw a couple statues. Walked down the River Thames, and saw the city. We spent about half an hour looking for one of the famous city like public toilets, which is a thing Europe has.
Right? Don't you have to pay for them in Europe?
Some you do, some you don't. Like in Amsterdam, there was some that you didn't have to pay for. You could, and they were really nice. In Paris, there were some that were also really nice. Just around the corner from the entrance to the what's it called? The catacombs. There's a urinal that is like completely automatic. It's like a giant robot. It's really cool, and you don't have to pay for it. But we found out we were on the opposite side of the city, so there were no public toilets on that side.
I find
so we
it
had
kind
to run
of
around.
We're talking about automated urinals on a ham radio podcast. I just love it.
This is
the life of a ham radio operator. Take it or leave it.
This is the phasing line. Yep. This is what we try to talk about to hopefully make you LOL a little bit. But yeah, I'm speaking at Winterfest. Let's get back on track. I'm speaking at Winterfest on about 11:30 Central at Collinsville, Illinois. What is it? The Collinsville Gateway Convention Center in Collinsville on the 28th of January, 11:30 to 12:45. I am following up Bob Hiles, so I have big shoes to fill.
Are you presenting with him?
No, it's going to be after. So we're probably I'm going to take the same room as him. I have no idea how big the crowd is going to be. I know a lot of my friends are coming from Rolla and from St. Louis, who are like supporting the whole youth thing.
Expect a packed room.
So that will be very fun. And if I do live stream it, you'll find out if you subscribe to me on YouTube, youtube.com/N0SSC.
Follow the phasing line on Twitter. Follow it on Facebook.
And that stuff too, if I remind myself. But the definite for sure way to know if it's live. Actually, no, wait. I don't think I live stream from my phone.
You can live stream to Facebook on your phone, or live Periscope on Twitter. So definitely subscribe to the Phasing Line podcast, social media streams, and I'll make sure it gets out there.
Yeah, and now that I think of it, I'll definitely put something out on all the streams and all of the media for Phasing Line, as well as my stuff too, N0SSC on Twitter and on YouTube and on Facebook, I guess. Actually, I don't. I keep my Facebook kind of like for my family and my close friends, and kind of keep it out of the ham radio spectrum. That was a pun. But my Facebook is like mostly family and stuff. But like over the last couple of months and years being more in ham radio, I've seen more ham radio people come into it. But I try to keep it on the down low. So if you friend request me on Facebook, but I don't accept it, please don't feel bad. It's just, I'm trying to separate the two from, being too intermixed. But you can always find me on Twitter. My Twitter is definitely ham radio centric or political rant centric, depending on the day and whatever Trump has said in the last like 5 minutes. But but yeah, so tangent over.
I'd like to say something similar. Whereas I have a very public persona on Facebook, but I have been a little bit more careful recently. But definitely follow me on Twitter. That's almost 100% only ham radio. And you can friend me on Facebook. I might, if I get a lot of requests, and sometimes I just can't respond. And I try to keep it to hams that I've either met or we've talked. Or
Yeah, that's kind of the philosophy. Like I do have a lot of hams on my Facebook, but they're close friends.
Right.
Like they're just not random people from the street. Sort of
right,
thing.
right. And I've definitely thought about separating, a personal one and a ham radio one, but a lot of hams are very close friends to me, personal friends.
Yeah.
It's something I think about. It's definitely a difficult subject.
Yeah, and I really wonder about social media's impact on ham radio and vice versa. Like there are tons of hams on social media, but there are so many hams who aren't because they're, of the age that they didn't get brought up on that technology. So, but then looking at my grandparents, they're on Facebook more than I am. So it's like
They probably also have more time for Facebook than you do.
That's true, being retired. So I imagine a lot more retirees are coming in on Facebook and Twitter, still with the air of like, I don't know how to use this newfangled crap, but no, like they eventually get on it. But then like, I really wonder the philosophy and like the pervasiveness of like social media and actually how effective is like, what if we tweet out we're on the air on this frequency versus sending an email to your listserv of, guys at your radio club, which is going to like get more like Larry's List is a really popular one in Kansas City. You can contact almost 1,000 hams, maybe more than that immediately over Larry's List if you publish there. But on Facebook and Twitter and even like eHam or QRZ, stuff's not immediate. People kind of stumble upon it. So
right, but you can engage. You can engage in it in the minute, which I think is kind of powerful. An email is more of a one way dialogue. I need to speak English.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's if you're broadcasting out. You can always reply to an email, but not if you can't if you don't have like a reply to address or if you're posting on a big reflector or a listserv or whatever they call it nowadays.
When I was a kid.
Yeah. Speaking of social media, we have ourselves a brand spanking new website, phasinglinepodcast.com. You don't even have to memorize a new domain. It's still the Phasing Line.
Yeah, and we've kind of tried to make it as, it flows as much as you can. So if you're subscribed to the RSS, we did the fancy thing where the RSS doesn't get messed up. You can still listen to episodes on the website with the embedded players. We added support for PayPal. This is probably a good time to plug it. So if you've heard us talk about for the last couple of weeks about we'd love to stick our grubby little hands in your pockets and take a little bit of money, but maybe you don't want to do that monthly and you only want to let my hand in, occasionally. Because it's big, fat, gross, and grubby, you can go to our website and click the PayPal button, which is new, and you can make like a once, just send us a little bit of love from.
Yeah, you can make I think you can make a 25-cent donation or a $25 donation. Like it doesn't matter.
Or a $25,000 donation. Everything is appreciated.
I mean, everybody listening to the podcast should know what PayPal is, but if you don't, because I know, like I was mentioning earlier, some of the older folks who haven't been brought up on the technology plug in a credit card and it's good. You can send us a check, I suppose, but I'm not expecting any checks anytime soon.
I think trying to keep things on the interwebs keeps kind of both sides of everybody kind of in check. Yeah. There's no way for us to fraud you. There's no way for you to fraud us.
There is a Bitcoin address as well, if that interests you. Bitcoin has been skyrocketing in terms of the price.
So maybe you want to send us like
the popularity, it's been going kind of down. Like I haven't really used Bitcoin in a long time.
So if you want to send us like 20 Bitcoins, if you want to send us like 20, 30, 40, 50 Bitcoins.
At the moment.
They're like what, $900 a piece?
About $20,000 basically.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Don't send us 20 Bitcoins.
Yeah,
buy a Tesla or something.
Send us 20 Bitcoins and we will make a podcast just for you to listen to every week. You individually.
Boy. I would quit my job.
I still have to go to school.
All right, so with that, we're going to take a quick break, take a drink of water, and put in a little beepy thing, and come right back on the Phasing Line.
Welcome back. This is part 2 of the Phasing Line podcast. I hope you survived the break. I am Marty again, KC1 Chicken with fries, and he is Sterling.
November 0, silly coffee.
Child.
Child. I'm really bad at the acronym thing. I know.
N0, smart, simplistic child.
Somebody, I think Word Silver came up with slightly strong coffee. which is funny because my name is Coffee.
Yeah.
And I drink a lot of coffee.
We got to get Ward on the show one of these days. He's going to be the the next guest. Hopefully.
I mean, he can come over. We live about 30 minutes
apart. He is
apart,
an open individual. If you are listening to this, Ward, and I hope you are welcome on every single episode we do. The door is always open for you.
Yeah, I also IM'd or emailed him once, and we were going to get lunch after we came back from Europe, but we haven't set up those plans yet. He's been working very diligently on the Missouri Parity Act, and that whole thing in Missouri, the idea of making HOAs less powerful when it comes to ham radio installations.
Right. I do not know a lot about the Missouri Act. I'm not sure if people know, but a new HR 1301, which ultimately failed last year, came back this week and passed. I want to say the House or maybe the Senate.
Yeah, it passed through the House very quickly. Like
within 5 days,
they came out with the new House Bill 555, which is kind of cool because of the 555 timer. If you're into electronics, you know what a 555 is. Yeah, and it's an IC chip an integrated circuit that
it must
does
be
some timing
maybe
things.
the most common IC ever made.
Yeah. So House Bill 555 is basically a rehashing of, was it 15 or 1301? The last one, which failed in the the Senate. So this one's through the House, and also the FCC has a new commissioner
who actually cares, I think, a little bit more about us this time.
He's really happy to see this bill, along with some other telecom bills, rush through the House and get passed. And
I think he has some interest in analog radio because he's talked a lot about like AM revitalization, which is a big deal these days. So,
right, like maybe going digital on AM or something like that.
And the other thing, I hate to cut you off. I'll let you talk in a sec. I apologize.
No, you didn't cut me off.
Keep talking.
I didn't. No, you perfectly interjected. Not interference.
Interference on the phasing line.
QRN.
No QRM. Only QRN. Is they reworded 555, I think, a little bit, because an interesting thing about 1301, which I don't think the ARRL will ever say, and I could interpret this wrong, but from people I've talked to, it seems like 1301 was worded in a way in which HOAs were forced to get involved in processes. There are sometimes HOAs wouldn't get involved. Cases like there's a lot of HOAs in like places like Kentucky and Iowa where basically the HOA manages plowing the private roads, but besides that, all it is the neighbors getting along to plow private roads. They have nothing to do with towers, but it was worded in a way that would make the HOA have to get involved in some way. That was an issue in some cases, so I think they've rectified that issue. And again, I could be wrong on all of this in the new version.
Right. I mean, I haven't done my research on what exactly is in the content of the bill, but I do know 1301 failed in the Senate due to what the Florida senator, who I guess didn't pass it, called a nay vote, because Florida is full of a lot of retirees who really value their home and their home's look and all of that. So I guess he was looking out for them. But ironically, Florida is also home to, I'm gonna, it's not a fact, but like
the most weather events and the most emergency events.
That's actually a fact. I wasn't going to say that, but I was going to say, like, there's a ton of retirees who are also hams down there.
For
like,
sure.
When you're on a contest, you make most contacts with Florida and California. California by far has the most hams, but I think Florida is a close second, if not, the most per capita, because of just how many retirees go down to Florida. But you're right. There are way more hurricanes that affect California or Florida, way more, natural events, weather events. I guess
it's a peninsula surrounded by water near the Caribbean.
Yeah. And so I think he's going to have to think twice when it comes to the Senate when he's going to be doing it again. So I feel really good about this bill. I don't know any of the cons. I know a lot of people had some opposition to the last bill because of the wording, which you were just mentioning. So maybe that has changed.
I know. My friend Dan at the league at the ARRL has literally devoted his last couple of years to this bill, and I hope it passes because he's a great guy and he works his butt off.
Yeah, and it'll be a strong win for ham radio if he does.
Yeah,
so it's got to pass Senate, then Trump's got to sign it, and after that, it'll become law. And Trump's kind of, it sounds like Trump wants to kind of make the FCC a little bit less like, the way that Republicans do the government. They they work on the infrastructure, they work on the military, but they like, well, maybe I'm totally wrong, but basically Trump wants the FCC to not have so much say. So there's a big hubbub with net neutrality and how the FCC has their, hands on like Comcast and big things like that. But we are French fry compared to those things. So I don't have any doubt in my mind.
We are like a millionth of what net neutrality is,
yeah, for sure.
But I hope I hope the new Parity Act passes.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's the Parity Act anymore. Is it?
Oh, it is. It's the Amateur Radio Parity Act. I'm looking at Congress.gov thing right now because I'm doing my research.
The Amateur Radio Parity Act of 2016, HR 555.
No, it's 2017.
It's 2017. I don't even know what year it is.
Yeah. Because you have a migraine. We'll let it go.
It's just my excuse.
But, so there's the Amateur Radio Parity Act, which is the federal bill, but there's also some state bills. I don't know of any other than Missouri. Missouri has a state bill that's run by Larry Scantlin, KE0KZ, lives in Wentzville, Missouri, which is just outside of St. Louis. It's like kind of the farthest suburb on the west down Highway 70 before you get to Nothing Land, which is like Wright City, and then my hometown Warrenton. Nothing Land.
You're the nothing kid in Nothing Land.
Right. Look at where I came from, y'all. And
now he's an engineer for a major company, so he's a success.
Oh, here, look at me bumping my chest. No, I'm trying to be humble here.
He pounds his bare chest as he runs through the forest, carrying hardline and coax to help all the needy hams. It is the Super Sterling Man. That's how I envision Sterling.
I should get my call sign changed to SSM.
Super Sterling Man.
I like that now.
You could be Super Sterling Child.
That's a double entendre too, because sterling is actually a word meaning worthwhile. It's like an English thing, like, oh, that was a sterling effort, son.
You could be Super Sterling
English
Canadian N0SSC.
Super Sterling Canadian, yeah. I want my Tim Hortons. Crikey, wait, that's Australian. I always confuse Canadian and Australian accents in my mind.
There's a subtle difference. It's a very important difference.
With Australian, you bring out your R's like that, but with Canadian, you nasal up and you drink a coffee, and you say a whole bunch.
Yeah. It's like when you cross...
I can't wait to hear myself and make fun of myself on the podcast.
It's when you cross like Minnesota and tired. I don't know. I feel like phonetics is fun. I'm chicken with fries.
Yeah, you have a good one.
CW filter.
That's not bad either. If you were a good CW, look, your head's a CW filter.
CW fanatic.
There you go. Are you a CW fanatic?
I'm a CW.
I mean, you haven't worked many CW contests, have you?
No, I'm not I hope to be one day. More experienced CW fanatic.
I do too, but I'm a slowpoke at it. I've been working on it for 10 years.
I'd like to...
since I've been licensed.
What other ones have I heard? I've heard cupcakes with frosting and chickpeas with falafel.
Yeah.
And...
the vegan version.
What? The vegan version. And Canadian with feelings. I'm not Canadian.
If you guys got any suggestions for Sierra Charlie, please let me know in the website comments. Oh, on WordPress, you can sign up for WordPress and submit comments. I actually don't think you need a WordPress.
Sterling custodian.
And but also tweet at us at Phasing Line. So there's also a Parity Act in Missouri, and where was I? We tangented.
Ward Silver is working on
Larry
that
Scatlin
as well.
Ward Silver is one of the guys. And so in Missouri, it failed, similar to 1301, to get any traction because there was no public support. Some guy thought, oh, it doesn't look like there's this is a really big deal, so we're just going to not talk about it anymore. So literally threw it out. So Larry brought it back, and with a stronger campaign, started emailing everybody in Missouri. Emailed me, and I made a blog post about it to go fill out a witness appearance form, basically showing basically like a signature that says you believe in this and you agree, and here's your testimony. So I wrote a little blurb about emergency communications and the plight of HOA, owners, people who live in HOAs who can't put up a modest antenna because their HOA sucks. And it sounds like they went yesterday or the day before yesterday in person to do their testimony, which I don't know if I'm using the right words. and they had way more people this time. I think 20 people showed up. They had lots and lots of those witness appearance forms. So it looks a lot better for that. And it looks a lot better for 555. So it's looking up for the ham radio versus HOA battle going on. So that's
how is this is my pure ignorance again. What is the state of HOAs in Missouri? Are there a lot of them?
Yeah, I mean, so let me use Larry's story as an example. Larry Scantlin, K0KZ, living in Wentzville, if you don't recall, or from our tangent. He found out after getting basically notified through the mail, I think he was away from home or something, that he isn't actually allowed to have ham radio equipment in his home. Like, he couldn't have a HT just in his home without a conditional use permit, which is egregious, which is ridiculous. So he started getting to know all of the board members.
How does one regulate
the city
that?
council members, the aldermen? I mean, people just pass a bill. Like, it just becomes law, and then the idea becomes lost. And so he became friends with the alderman, and this was not even an HOA. This was a city statute. This was like a city law. So you had to have a conditional use permit with the city, like zoning and planning, whatever. So he became friends with the alderman, and all but one person was like, well, this is ridiculous. And so they immediately, got rid of that legislation. And the one person who didn't agree was a person on the board of his HOA. And so it goes deeper. There's HOA regulations that say you can't have antennas that, go above the peak of your roof, or you can't have any antennas at all, which I think is what his case was. And I'm sure he'll correct me after he hears it. And so he started fighting his HOA and made a lot of ground in that as well. And he realized after uncovering all the onion layers that there are tons of HOAs. The city of Wentzville cannot build a new subdivision unless that subdivision is under an HOA. And it's like kind of like a workers union. It benefits the homeowners from, bad things, but it is very, very prone to people who are power hungry, and want to have and own their own little empire and want to basically be totalitarian. And that's just the thing that some people like to do. And that will easily get out of hand. So there's no real oversight over that. And so the only oversight that there is undersight, is people in the HOA and around putting pressure on them to say, okay, these are crazy ideas. These are problems. These are preventing, potential, like in an emergency situation, this is preventing our community from having any emergency communications capability, just based on the fact, a lot of hams live here, but they can't have an antenna. So what are you going to do in an emergency? You can't do anything. And there's a ton of ignorance that goes around too. Like the people who testified, if you look up W0 Echo Alpha EA, TJ Campy, he spoke in front of his city board and tried to do the same thing Larry did, but they eventually declined it. He wanted to put up a tower in his backyard or a pole or something, and it got declined because ignorant people think that,
well, a ham radio tower is going to give you cancer, and it's going to be 1,000 feet tall, and it's going to ruin the value of my house, and it's going to actually kill everybody
fall and scare my children.
I'm going to be 3 miles away, but it's going to fall on my house.
Yeah. Somebody literally came in and said, it's scaring my children. Somebody literally came in and said, it's interfering with my baby monitors, which wasn't true because he never even actually transmitted. And if it did, then there's an FCC regulation called Part 15 for that.
Which means his baby monitors aren't shielded properly, probably.
Yeah, whatever it was, maybe TV, but even then it's like, it goes miles. And that testimony is online as well. If you want to look it up, look up W0EA, and it's on his Twitter. He lives somewhere in Texas. I forget the name of the city or town. But it's pervasive. It's everywhere. And all the stuff you don't see on social media is, that's only a small fraction of what's actually going on. So a lot of people don't call out to social media and say, I need help. So hopefully this goes back to our little previous conversation about the philosophy of social media and ham radio. This is something that definitely helps. Once Larry started emailing and Facebooking and telling all of the live streamers and podcasters, hey, there's this thing, boom, like tons and tons of support. So
right. Well, something's existed for a while called PRB1, which basically said that cities and counties had to give, as they say, reasonable accommodation to radio amateurs. They can define what is, or the ham can define what is reasonable. what is necessary for their installation, I believe. But I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I think there's some ham radio lawyers we could definitely talk to about this. But I'm under the impression that doesn't apply to HOAs.
It applies to local government zoning ordinances.
Correct.
And well, I need to look through this, but
HOAs can circumvent that.
Yeah, they can, or they just don't recognize it. They just ignore it, And so there's not much.
I think there's a
the FCC
legal
can't
side to it.
Yeah, I mean, you end up suing your HOA and going through this whole process, and then the FCC doesn't do any top-down stuff saying, okay, HOA, you can't do this. So they don't check to see their HOA bylaws to make sure that they are compliant with PRB1. Like, that's something that nobody realizes. It's just like the people who don't know that ham radio signals don't actually cause cancer. Like,
they don't?
Yeah, surprise. That they didn't know that and I mean, that's not something you'd expect them to know either. Like, not the radio waves causing cancer, but the fact that this thing exists. So I mean, case by case is just how it's being done.
As a ham radio attorney friend says, you always have your rights, but sometimes you need to pay and work to defend them.
Yeah. Yep. That's the truth.
And if you're interested in antenna zoning and tower law, there's pretty much one Bible in ham radio for it, and I believe it's called Antenna Zoning for Amateur Radio. It's a book. It's a great book. Antenna Zoning for the Radio Amateur. And it was written by Fred K1VR. And he's a fantastic writer and also a fantastic lawyer. He's one of the best in the world, I'd say, when it comes to tower law, and he's very well regarded in that realm, as well as he happens to also be a good contester, a fantastic contester.
Oh, really?
So I think he's definitely one to talk to, one to read, and I assume I think he's always looking, always accepting new clients. I assume I could be wrong, but if you need a place to start, his book is probably a good starting place.
Yeah, and it's available in either or. He has a website,
antennazoning.com. Yep.
Yeah, with a lot of resources, for free.
But if you want to talk to him, you're gonna have to pay. He is the best.
Yeah, I mean, lawyers.
He's very reasonable in his cost, but just
right. I'm sure people, like, a lot of lawyers will do free consultations and stuff because But
I don't know. Yeah,
but yeah, there's a resource there for you, and there's for every one of him. There's probably another dozen that aren't as popular at the moment. Hopefully, he's starting a movement of telecommunications lawyers that are ham radio friendly. But
I don't know.
We'll see. But that's there. Just so
yeah, very good. And the other thing, we just wanted to kind of, I think it's important to note that. I mean, and the other thing I was gonna try and say here is that if you want HR 555 to pass, be vocal. Sitting back in your easy chair is not gonna get it passed.
Right.
What will get it passed is talking to your people. Your local,
specifically now
your senators.
You need to email and call and write your senator of your state.
Give them a call. Show up at their office.
Right. I don't think you'll be showing up at their office, but the volume of emails and stuff they get, if they have like
dividends.
Literally 2 emails that have HB 555 in it, they'll be like, oh, maybe I need to read those.
2, but more like if we can send 2,000, that's huge.
Well, okay, true. I was off by a few orders of magnitude, but what I'm saying is, like,
10 to the first, 10 to the second, 10 to the third. One person isn't going to do
it. One person is going to do it. Everybody has to do their part to get it to pass. And that's really easy. And there's templates you can fill out to do this, and buttons you can click. So
show your support. Really be simple. A passionate ham.
We'll have a link in the description of the RSS show notes feed for you to do that.
And the other,
if applicable,
before we kind of wrap things up and kind of finish up here, I wanted to touch a little bit on HRD and the HRD gate. So 2 episodes ago, when Sterling was in Europe, I put out an episode talking to Jeff NT1K, who is one of the mods on Reddit. And Reddit was a place where this story helped or started to be broken. Information came from there. Information came from a wide variety of sources. But I just wanted to give a little bit of an update on that. When we updated that, things were kind of still uneasy, and HRD hadn't really responded. Well, at this time, HRD put out a more formal statement by their managing owners. So I thought the thing I could do here, and we'll get into this in a minute, but first I wanted to just read a few select passages from the email. It starts, an open letter to our customers. Dear valued customers, we've received many questions from our customers and dealers about the recent events, blah, blah, blah. But this is the strong steps that have been taken to ensure our customers will not have to experience the issues they experienced in the future. If you want to know about the actions which the company, quote, called deplorable, you can listen to the former episode, but co-founder Rick Rule has resigned his ownership in the company as of December 31st, 2016, and has retired from the ham radio market. They say a transition is underway, and the other owners were not really involved in the day-to-day workings of the company. Rick kind of managed that, but the two others are going to be taking more roles in the future. They also said that the capabilities to disable software upgrades based on call sign were removed. That was kind of the big hoo-ha. A lot of the customers were given refunds which had issues, and policies have been communicated to the staff to protect the interests of our customers and prospective customers. I interpret that as be polite to the customers. And finally, they updated the end user license agreement, or EULA, to be more appropriate. And I think I haven't read it, but I assume they probably get rid of the ability to, their ability to blacklist a customer when they're pissed off. So I guess we're kind of at the point here where it seems like Rick was kind of the problem, and now Rick is kind of gone. So I think,
and all the backlash is now given them, or all the backlash has made it. What am I trying to say? All the backlash has really put a fire under their butt to get everything back in order. And so it seems like things are. So
now that Rick is gone, I'd almost say go check it out. I think the other two guys really had no malice intended. And maybe it's time that we give them a little bit of slack.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a good way. But of course they're still going to have some fallout from it. They're going to have they're going to have more worse reviews and fewer actual subscriptions, but over time that stuff obviously falls off, and hopefully they can do something for the amateur community that can prove their trust, basically so we can regain our trust, or their trust with the ham radio community, so we can buy HRD again.
For sure, I'd love to see them improve their product, and I have no doubt that maybe they will in the future. Well, I think we should kind of put the ribbons on it here. If you aren't,
it's been an hour
so far. Check out the new website, guys. We put a lot of time into it. Guys, gals, whatever your gender is, whoever you identify, check out the new page. It's pretty damn sweet.
PhasingLinePodcast.com. You don't have to change your URLs or bookmarks, or if anybody even uses bookmarks anyway.
What he said.
PhasingLinePodcast.com.
Check out that donation tab. Give us a little bit of love. Patreon, PayPal.
Or PayPal.
PayPal is good too. Or just, send us a little bit of a heart on Facebook. Don't even need to send any cash. We just like hearing from you. Tell us what I'm doing wrong, what we're doing right.
Yeah, and we've gotten a lot of really good feedback on, how we suck, how we're good. There's a couple people that have posted on the Facebook, on my YouTube, that are saying like, oh, I'm a young person, I love this podcast, and so that makes us feel really good, and that makes us want to do it more. So keep doing that. If you really do like this podcast,
and if you don't like it,
if you have a problem
tell us that too.
I know. And there's been a few of those, and we're hopefully doing better doing stuff to make it better. So
I've been told I cut people off too much, and I acknowledge that. So I'm going to try and cut people off less. But if you don't tell me what I'm doing wrong, I can't make it better. So that's important too.
Sure. So for everything I don't tell him that he's doing wrong, you have to make up for it.
So I guess where that leaves us is, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook, Facebook.com/PhasingLine podcast. You can go straight to the Patreon page if you want, Patreon.com/PhasingLine podcast. Website, PhasingLinePodcast.com.
Twitter, PhasingLine, @PhasingLine, or Twitter.com/PhasingLine.
All those places.
And RSS, of course. I'll put a thing on, I don't know, because a lot of people don't listen to podcasts because they don't know how to use them. So I might put a thing on the website on how to listen to us. And actually right now, if you go to our About page, there'll be a sidebar. This is how to listen. And we've got iTunes, Google Play Music, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, Overcast for iOS. It's an app I love. YouTube, Libsyn, and the RSS feed. So there's a whole bunch of links that you can click from whatever device you use, and it will automatically plug in our little doobly-doo thingy. So that should help.
So we'll see you next time in probably 2 weeks right here on the Phasing Line podcast. Bye-bye.
73, everybody.